stopped. Now, if they were actually intent on genocide, which means the destruction of a people, then it wouldn't matter whether they got the hostages back and Hamas agreed to disarm, because the point of the violence would be to kill Palestinians. So to me, that's the ultimate test of whether it was a genocide, and it wasn't.
Well, I believe that they took a deal that had been offered numerous times before by folks like Tony Blinken and Biden, but they rejected it, and ultimately they took it when American public opinion really soured on what was happening. And I think they saw the writing on the wall, and they saw that Trump wanted an end to the war as well. But those terms were offered more or less numerous times in those 2 years. And I don't think that the 2 years of fighting and killing all these people was justified. I believe that they could have gotten terms, if not identical, very similar a few months in after October 7th. The other thing is that when you look at Ben-Gvir, when you look at Smotrich, when you look at Gallant, when you say, look, they all should be shoved into a small part of Gaza, that they are all animals and we're going to treat them that way, that there needs to be a response that is disproportionate to what happened, then you see people in the government basically showing reckless indifference for Palestinian lives, and you see them having a concerted strategy to push a people into a small part of Gaza, which is part of the definition of genocide, is the elimination of a group from their homeland. And do you believe? I mean, I'll ask you: Do you think Ben-Gvir or Smotrich really want Palestinians living in the West Bank or in Gaza? They call it Judea Samaria. I mean, they don't even acknowledge Palestinians. And I think they were part of this coalition that Netanyahu had to listen to stay in power.
Yeah, I have no sympathy for Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and all the far-right hyper-nationalists and racists. I think they're terrible for Israel. They're terrible for the Palestinians. They are part and parcel of the problem with settler violence in the West Bank. One of the great mistakes, I think, of the Israeli center was not agreeing to, because recall, Netanyahu, as his first choice, wanted to partner in coalition with the Israeli center. They refused on principle, which drove him out of necessity to partner with the far-right goons that were never a part of his coalition since he came back to the prime ministership around 2010. And for most of the war decisions were being made by a war cabinet that consisted of Israeli centrists as well. And so, on the one hand, I totally agree with your critiques of Ben-Gvir. I mean, they're maniacs. They're outside of the mainstream. But I also understand that when you have a country the size of New Jersey, where I grew up, size and population of New Jersey, where 1,000 people get killed by terrorists on your border in a single day, over 1,000 actually, the pressure to respond in a democracy and protect your citizens and get rid of the threat is overwhelming. And any Israeli politician, left, right, or center, would have been forced, and by the way, any American president, if we were in an analogous situation, which we never really are because we're just much more protected, would be forced to respond to eliminate the threat. And I have a lot of sympathy for the population that is surrounded on all sides by terror in that scenario. And I think the narrow focus on the far right of Israel, while in some sense totally justified and abhorrent, can obscure the larger situation of vulnerability that Israeli citizens, left, right, and center, are in vis-a-vis the terrorists and proxies of Iran that they're surrounded by. But we don't have to get